Welcome back. Imagine suddenly moving from your home to a place you have to share with strangers, sharing bunk beds in a tiny room that doesn't even belong to you. Imagine doing this while starting at a new school and making new friends. Homeless children deal with circumstances like this every day. There are programs in Massachusetts that help children cope. With so many homeless children these days, the call for help has never been greater.
Well, at first it was really scary because we was moved to Somerville, to a shelter in Somerville, and I didn't like that shelter at all. It was really bad.
We're already 1/3 of the way there.
Terrence Small is 13. When he was just 7 years old, his family became homeless and moved into a shelter with 5 other families.
My mom had her own room, and then me and my brothers had to share one room. And it was like a bunk bed. It was a bunk bed and a bed that slides out. And yeah, it was like a really small room.
Terrence remembers the cramped shelter. He had no room to do his schoolwork. He didn't have any space to himself.
They told us when to shower and stuff, and there was 5 families, and each family had a day in the week to cook. And my mom didn't cook to the end of the week, and sometimes I didn't like what the other families were making, so I didn't eat.
There are approximately 17,500 homeless children in Massachusetts, but there are only 3,500 housing units for families. That includes emergency, transitional, and permanent housing.
Homelessness is definitely on the rise, and unfortunately I think it's going to continue, and so there's going to be more and more kids who are homeless.
Barbara Schwartz is the director of Children and Family Services at a Medford-based nonprofit agency called Housing Families.
I think it's incredibly hard to be homeless as a kid, and I think that kids feel really embarrassed and feel the stigma of it, feel like there's something wrong with them. I think kids blame themselves a lot, even if there isn't anything wrong.
Hi.
Sue Heilman of Horizons for Homeless Children says it takes more than just housing to help a child deal with homelessness.
Moving out of shelter and into one's own apartment is a wonderful thing, and is what everybody who's homeless is hoping for every single day. It can be a big transition. There's a lot of getting to know a new community, and so that takes time, and it's a vulnerable period.
Barbara Schwartz says homelessness can lead to academic or emotional problems too. Housing Families runs an after-school program that targets these very issues.
The children's program has 3 main parts. We have individual counseling, therapeutic arts groups, and tutoring. And part of what's unique about this program is that we work with kids while they're in the shelter, and then we work with kids for years afterwards. There's gains that kids can make while they're in shelter, and then sometimes after they're stabilized and they have a roof over their head, there's a way in which they're really able to fly and take off. And so some of the kids have come here and are able to open up and heal more and do more counseling after they've left.
I don't want to write, I want to read.
Terrence and one of his younger brothers still attend the after-school program even though they are no longer homeless.
I think when they were in shelter there was a level of stress and maybe a level of embarrassment and not wanting to share their pain and their situation, and I feel like he's opened up more. I think he probably has more confidence now.
Terrence's older brother, who also attended Housing Families program, is now enrolled in college on a full scholarship. Terrence credits the after-school program for helping him gain confidence and not feel embarrassed about being homeless.
I think if we didn't go to the shelter in Somerville, we probably would still be in Boston. I probably would be in a lot of trouble right now and stuff. So it helped me become Terrence today.
But Terrence's story is rare. Students who are homeless are less likely to do well in school. Standardized test scores are lower than those who haven't been homeless, and fewer than 25% of homeless youth graduate from high school.
A lot of them have moved so many times that it's hard to keep up academically, or it's hard to focus on your schoolwork if you don't know where you're going to be living tomorrow. Or you've moved 6 times, and so you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know the school, and so a number of our kids are delayed academically. So what we're trying to do is help them in the academic area to get them up to speed, and also to help them in any ways that the emotional areas they've been affected.
In these tough economic times, it's becoming more difficult to find programs like the one at Housing Families.
Permanent housing cuts have been going on since Reagan days, and so the question is, will there be more money that's put towards affordable housing so that families can leave shelter? Will there be more support for homeless shelters, for children's programs?
We're very excited about the the new administration coming to Washington with lots of new ideas.
Sue Heilman says more people need to be aware of family and child homelessness and become more active about making a change before any problems can be resolved.
It's still a hidden problem, really, because you don't see these families living on the street the same way you see individuals living on the streets. Because it is hidden, most people are just not aware of it in their day-to-day life. So we all have to work hard to keep the issue in the forefront of people's minds.
It's important to mention that the reported 17,500 homeless children in Massachusetts do not account for unreported cases and those who are temporarily homeless. Horizons for Homeless Children reports that on any given day, upwards of 100,000 children are homeless in the state. Now, we're going to list 3 websites you should jot down. For more information or to volunteer at Horizons for Homeless Children, check out their website, www.horizonsforhomelesschildren.org. Housing Families website is housingfamilies.org. And here's the address for the Children's Services of Roxbury, csrocks.org. If you missed any of these addresses, please see our page on thebostonchannel.com or check out our page on Facebook. Up next, 2 experts in child psychology on long-term trauma for homeless children. As we can all guess, the trauma of homelessness can lead to emotional and psychological issues in children. Sometimes it takes a while to see just how serious those effects can be. Today we're joined by 2 doctors who specialize in the psychological consequences of traumatic events in children and teenagers. Dr. Glenn Sachs is the Associate Chief of Psychiatry for Research and Development at Children's Hospital in Boston. He studies the behavior of children who live in environments with ongoing stress. And Dr. Blaise Aguirre is a medical director at McLean Hospital. He is recognized for his extensive work in the treatment of mood and personality disorders in adolescents. Welcome to CityLine, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
First of all, let's get both of your opinions on how homelessness affects children psychologically.
Yeah. I guess perhaps I could start. One of the most important parts of childhood is safety. If a child is living in an environment where they feel really vulnerable, then they're at all kinds of risk. It's very hard to really develop properly and have a life in which you feel calm and good and have decent self-esteem if you feel unsafe. And there's nothing that will make someone feel as vulnerable as not having a home.
And Dr. Aguirre?
And just to add on to what Glenn had to say, that homelessness can often come in part because there is mental health issues in the family as well, so that there are effects of homelessness on the child, and often there are mental health issues with the parents as well. So it can both cause homelessness and in and of itself can have an effect on the development of the child and the family as a whole.
What are some of the warning signs that you as medical professionals look out for, and what parents should look out for to detect if this stress is impacting their children?
I think a change in level of functioning, a change in feeling connected, someone who will become more withdrawn, someone whose behavior will change and do things that they otherwise don't do. A kid who is relatively calm who suddenly is pretty aggressive.
Are there typical cases, or do you see symptoms varying from child to child?
I think the symptoms do vary from child to child. There are some typical cases, so-called acting out behavior, aggressiveness, nightmares, difficulty sleeping at night.